Alright everyone, what's up? This is Epo Dempsey Roll here, aka Rayo, and I'm back with more painting, more hobby stuff. So I haven't actually been painting too much on stream. I think last week I had just about one kind of smallish stream of painting, and then yeah, I didn't do much streaming. I was kind of saving my energy for Elden Ring when it eventually came out, and even then I didn't really play all that much Elden Ring just yet. But I have been painting off stream, and that's what I have for you here right now. I really wanted to put the finishing touches on these miniatures before moving on to something else. And while I felt like I was very close to finishing them, or I could consider them done, there was just at least a couple more things that I really wanted to get done before, yeah, as I said, before moving on. So let's start with the jet bike here. And if you take a look here, I've painted some decorative design elements, kind of like a swooshy, stripey thing on the hood there, as well as on the wings. And that's sort of keeping in line with the little design element that's here on their backpacks. There's like a little swoosh there, and again, you can see it here as well. And I'm mostly pretty happy with how that came out. I was documenting my process for this, taking photos in between steps. So I'll probably put that up on my Instagram and maybe make a YouTube video out of it. But for now, I can show you this is more or less the finished product. And if we zoom in really close, and sorry if it doesn't really come through as sharply as I wanted. I can't really tell at the moment, but I've added some weathering, like chips and scrapes, to the model, just around the wing part and the hood here. And I've continued the scratching and the chips into the design itself. And again, maybe we can get a better look at that on Instagram. That's at RayOhobby, REYOHOBBY. And I'll be throwing up these pictures on my Instagram as well. But yeah, this is kind of the test for what I'd like to do today in today's session of reproducing this to the rest of the other models that I have, the jet bikes, that is. And once we're done that, we are pretty close to finishing up these Eldar Jet Bikes completely. There could be some other things, but that's gonna be mostly it for them. Also, I want to do like a little flag streaming, but I'm thinking maybe not a flag necessarily, but maybe like streamers. I haven't fully decided yet. But yeah, we can talk a bit more about how I did the scrapes for this, the scrapes and the scratches as we move along. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Although in some cases maybe I overdid it. I'm not 100% sure. That's kind of one of those things where you're kind of better off showing a little bit of restraint when you want to do weathering and damage. If you're not painting orcs. If you're painting orcs, then by all means go right on ahead and scratch and ding up your your models to your heart's content. And oh yeah, so here we have the other thing that I wanted to do the design for. And yeah, pretty happy with that, how that turned out. And again, we're gonna probably do just a bit of weathering on this, but not too much. I don't really think it'll benefit from too much weathering. Eldar are kind of like a sleek army anyways. They kind of want to be very clean and efficient or whatever. So yeah, in some respects, I feel like I could just leave this as is, but maybe we can do a few more things to kind of touch it up. But we'll see. So yeah, that'll be today's session, doing some weathering. And well, first we'll do the stripes. The stripes, as you can see here. And then we'll move on to the weathering, and that'll probably be the bulk of today's session. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's just about it. Also, I've added this yellow bit here to the shoulder, just because the whole model, especially the headless ones, they didn't have the helmetless guys. They didn't have that yellow element, so their whole body was just yellow. Blue, and that didn't really sit well with me. So I, taking a page from Star Wars, we've got the different colored pauldron. Is that a pauldron? Shoulder armor there, and I think that looks pretty cool. I don't know if I should extend that to the rest of the army, but in cases where there's a model without a helmet, I think I might do that just to kind of tie them in a little better. So yeah, there's also another thing that we can kind of address quickly. Let's see. So I drew the details here with pencil, and you can kind of see a little bit of the shininess of the graphite from the pencil. So you can kind of just erase that. I use this here. This is a what is this? It's totally faded, but it's a Sanford eraser stick, right? Kind of like one of those mechanical pencils, except for an eraser. And it's pretty handy for getting into very small areas, as well as I've even gone and snipped the tip of the eraser so that it's not flat. I've kind of made it come to a point, and that also helps get into all the little nooks and crannies of the details. And I was a little hesitant to start erasing, like, uh-oh, is this gonna rub away some of the drawing? Some of the painting? But no, it's actually the paint has attached itself to the model quite well, and I'm not really picking up any of the paint as I'm erasing here. You can double back, you can kind of check the eraser and see I'm not really picking up any blue or yellow. So we're just gonna carefully get rid of the pencil lines, and there's probably some here. And again, this is something that I'll have to do with the rest of the models as I begin. I've kind of made quite the backlog for myself in terms of various projects I'd like to do. So yeah, I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to make a dent in my backlog. Hopefully I can do it, but whatever. At the end of the day, it's a hobby. It's a mix. Like sometimes you just want to get projects done, and the final product in terms of like quality is less of a focus than it is just the fact that you get it done. And other times, because it's a hobby and it's supposed to be just for fun, you want to take all the time in the world, right, to work on your models. But then sometimes you take too long and then you lose interest. So I'm trying to balance that out. So yeah, here's this model. I've kind of erased all the pencil marks, and we might do a bit of light weathering on this too, but that's mostly done right there. So there it is. And actually, I was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was highly reluctant to even start doing the patterns for this, because I just couldn't make up my mind, and I looked up a bunch of research, just in terms of what other people have done for the designs, and there was some people out there that made like a V shape, kind of like this. So the yellow lines would be connecting in like a V shape. That looked pretty cool. But I don't know. I felt like that might be kind of hard to do for my current skill level. But because it would have to be perfectly aligned, right? Maybe if I used masking tape or something, right? If I used tape, it would be it'd be a lot easier. But yeah, it would. I decided to just go for something like this, which kind of reminds me of a shoe, like an Adidas shoe, a little bit. But that's fine. I like Adidas. But I ended up taking a photo of this model and bringing it into Photoshop on the computer and working out a couple of different designs, seeing what I liked. And it didn't really take long to just settle on this, because at the end of the day, this is a fairly basic troop type, right? It's not that special, so just a simple decorative design was going to be enough, and we can reserve more elaborate patterns and designs for elite models and stuff like that. So yeah, I took it into Photoshop, just messed around, and I didn't even do it well in terms of like making it like a nice illustration mock-up. I just literally almost took MS Paint quality, like blam, 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 and was like, oh yeah, okay, this looks fine. Then just went off and started to draw it. And I think that's what we'll start to do right now. So just give me a second, guys. And we can begin drawing. All right. I was about to munch on a snack, but let's not reserve a snack for later. So I'll be using this. This is a Uniqlo mechanical pencil again. Mechanical pencil. This is 0.3 millimeter lead. It's useful to have because versus a normal pencil, because you don't have to sharpen it and you'll always get the sharp tip. If anything, I maybe would have preferred a softer lead type. This one's a slightly harder. A softer lead type would probably be easier to erase, but all right. So I pencil in the drawing, and the design, and I can use this one as a bit of a reference, the other one that I drew. And we're just gonna start. And I might not talk all that much as we do this, guys. Apologize for that. And I'll definitely draw past the parts that I need to, past the parts of the design, because I want to ensure that the lines are going to flow properly with the shape of the model. So yeah, I don't actually need to draw that much, but it helps me work as a guide in terms of getting the right shapes. It's not a big deal because we can erase it afterwards anyways. There we go, there's the first one. Enelith, hello, how's it going, Enelith? What is up? I take it that you are a Warhammer fan? And I'll apologize in advance as I work at this, because yeah, I'm kind of focusing in on this part, and I might not be able to look at the chat as often as possible. So yeah, one thing I'd like to mention though is as I drew this pattern here in pencil first, but I changed it as I was painting. I kind of made a lot of changes in terms of the spacing between these two yellow shapes. They were much further apart and a bit more equal in width. But as I was painting, I kind of looked at it and was like, oh, you know what? I like it when there's one significantly thicker one, and then a thin one, and a much smaller gap in between. Much more like along the lines of this. So yeah, I ended up not even necessarily following my pencil guides, but now I can actually make it closer to what I want with pencil. And I think that's gonna be pretty good. Enelith, fan is an understatement. Go on, it's a great model. Thanks, I appreciate it, Enelith. So you're a big fan of Warhammer 40k. What are your current armies? What have you been working on? I have to say that for my part, I'm a bit of a lapsed fan of Warhammer and Games Workshop stuff in general. And over the past few years, I've been kind of slowly getting back into it and kind of just painting my older models first, painting like my backlog. All of these models that I'm painting currently are just they've been unpainted for years and years, so now I'm kind of getting to them now. You can actually take a look at it above. Yeah, so kind of slowly getting back into Warhammer, painting mostly. I used to play 40K, not all that much even back then, but I did play. I was definitely more of a Warhammer fantasy kid in my youth. So I'm a little more familiar with Warhammer Fantasy, but yeah, even then I'm still very much kind of out of the loop in terms of what's going on these days. This one's slightly longer. So we're just gonna... So I think that's gonna be pretty good. You can tell it looks really scratchy right now. The pencil, you can kind of erase it and make it look a little cleaner. But let's continue and draw the designs on this model as well as the other jet bike first. Let's do that. Enelith. Building a Space Marine chapter? Cool. You're curious about how I got such nice transitions on the blues? Okay, well, I can explain a little bit about that. I'm glad that you think it looks good because it took a while for me to get to that point, and honestly, yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. But I can at least explain a little bit about how I did that. So, are you familiar with the painting technique called wet blending? That's basically where you're going to be mixing your paint kind of on the model itself rather than mixing it on a palette and then mixing it on your palette, putting the paint here, mixing the two colors here, and then applying it on the model. Instead, you're going to be kind of doing that on the model itself. And it's something that I'm not all that very good at, to be honest. I'm trying to practice it myself, and it took a while to get to a point where I was kind of happy with these models. Still not 100% happy, but it was good enough. And yeah, so basically, again, I'll just go over this kind of quickly. I kind of applied a base coat to this model first, right? Pick something neutral, which is to say in between like the lightest light that you're going to go and the darkest dark. And once that's done, you can start wet blending. Okay, so you're aware of wet blending. All right. I don't have to go over it too much. So yeah, that's the main thing that I've done with wet blending. And the thing that kind of helped a lot is after you get to a point where you're more or less happy with your wet blending, you can start glazing. And glazing kind of helps. Like, again, I'm sure you're aware of this as well, but I just did several layers of glazing, and that's like taking a paint color and thinning it down to the point where it's very watery, and you're gonna just kind of like push it from one point to the other point. Start from the lightest point and move it down to the darkest, and you're just gonna continually do that in strokes. And this is several layers of glazing, and that kind of helps to soften the wet blending a bit if you're like me and you didn't like do a super great job of wet blending. You can kind of you can rely on glazing to kind of create a smoother transition. And so there's two other things I'd like to mention about wet blending. I have this stuff here, or rather glazing. I have this stuff here. It's in a glass bottle, but it's actually liquid acrylic retarder, which I'm pretty sure you can buy at other hobby stores. And I'm pretty sure Games Workshop sells something like this. I'm just not sure of what the term they have for it. It's something that what's the term? It slows down the drying time of your paint, right? And I use that. I used quite a bit of that, or actually no, that's not the right thing I wanted to say. I used a dab of this mixed with my glazing color to, again, it just kind of slows down the drying time, so you have more time to work with it. And that also helps create a softer transition. And the second thing I'll mention, and it's something that I kind of realized a little later in the process, but you want to use a bigger brush, especially with large surfaces like this. Yeah, so previously, so my first few layers of trying to wet blend, I was using this brush, which is kind of like my standard go-to base coating brush, and it's a good size for miniatures, like for human figures, but not really for vehicles, right? And then I switched to this, which is this is actually a watercolor brush. It's supposed to be used for watercolors, and it's actually really quite good for that purpose. It just has a lot of bristles and it holds the paint really well. So yeah, this one here really helped with wet blending because it's just a lot bigger, right? So yeah, I mean that's kind of like the gist of it. I'm not definitely not the best painter around, but I'm trying. I'm learning here, and that's what I've discovered thus far. So yeah, let's continue with the patterns. And these are the old Eldar Jet Bikes, the ones that were made in maybe the 80s or something. So they actually lack a lot of the details that the modern jet bikes have, or rather, should I say, what are they called now? Windriders. The modern Windriders have a lot more detail. Okay, let's see here. So in a sense, I'm kind of drawing in the detail that the modern models have. Okay, I think that looks okay. And then we go on this side. And we check. Gonna check the other side just to make sure they're all the same. It's kind of balanced. And sometimes I gotta move the model around and hold it in different ways to get the right angle. This music is kind of a little too intense for doing such detailed work. I might have to change the tracks. And Ella, thanks for the explanation. No problem. I hopefully that was informative, because yeah, I'm still trying to figure out things myself and try and get better at it. And that looks okay. If I were to take a photo of these models, like, and really zoom in, you'd probably see how actually not smooth it is. You know, it's actually kind of not all that smooth as it might look on stream. But yeah, it's good enough if you're looking at it from far away. So have you been so you're working on Space Marines. Do you have any other armies that are complete, or is that like your main army that you are focusing on at the moment? Do you have some other ones? Very informative. Okay, cool. I appreciate it. I do upload some of my streams, or portions of my stream, onto YouTube, and Nightbot has probably been spamming my YouTube channel but it's or you can get the information to get there through my bio here on Twitch. But yeah, I do have a video where I explain a bit more about my journey in wet blending. I'm trying to get better at it. There we go. Okay, so that is that. Now we got to do the side hull. Now we got to do the side of this. Oh, and I realized that this bar should be a little further away. Yeah, I was a little nervous to start drawing these patterns onto the model just because if I screw it up, everything that I had worked on previously would also get screwed up, but I'm kind of glad that I took the plunge because it ended up looking pretty decent. Okay, there we are. And I have no idea when I'll try to use that myself, but it looks really good on larger surfaces like tanks. Yeah. I haven't really painted a lot of huge, large surfaces like tanks. I have a Falcon Grav tank that I have to work on. I'm kind of working my way through the smaller models onto a slightly larger model. This is the jet bike. I've just done a little bit of work on that, just a base coat, and then yeah, eventually I'll get to my Falcon Grav tank. Although I'm thinking I should probably spray paint it rather than hand brush it, at least to do a lot of the bulk of the work. I don't have an airbrush, so that's my option for me at the moment. And unless I'm only building the chapter, it's already taking me ages and too much money. Yeah, welcome to the hobby. Yeah. So which chapter? Is it like a chapter of your own invention, or is it like there's so many to choose from? Ultramarines, Dark Angels, Blood Angels. So now I'm just erasing the extra lines because I don't need them and I don't want to get confused by those. Okay, and we take a brush to wipe it all off. And we can actually, might as well just erase this part here too. Don't even have to do that great of a job of erasing it. I'll clean it up in better detail later. There we go. Good enough, good enough. Okay. Now we have to do the same for this side. Okay, so we gonna draw a curve here to kind of match the contour of the jet bike. And we extend the curve farther than it needs to be just to get the right flowing shape. And then we start with the design. Again, we're kind of paying attention to the contours of the model and checking with the other side to make sure it lines up. And I think this could be actually thinner, so let's erase. Bacon. Weathering time to learn some tech. Yeah, so I'm still kind of learning weathering myself, Bacon, so we're learning together. I can actually show you real quick what I've done so far. How's it going, Bacon, by the way? What are you up to these days today? How much work have you done on your tall geese. Okay. And I made some mistakes with scratches. Yes, I'm doing weathering, but right now I'm actually drawing the patterns because I have to do the designs first, and then we'll move on to weathering because you can't do weathering and then put your designs on top of the weathering, because weathering realistically would happen to the entire model and all the designs and surfaces, right? So you have to take that into account. So here, Bacon is an example of the finished, or more or less finished, thing with the designs. You can see that this is what I've been drawing in. And if you look really closely, and again, I'm not 100% sure if this is showing up on the stream. I can take a better picture and put it up on my Instagram later. But yeah, there's these scratches and weathering and nicks, and I've made the scratches extend into the designs as well. I actually think that this side of the model is a little more successful in terms of the weathering than it is on this side, but it's fine. This was more or less my first try, so yeah. Eneleth. It's a custom chapter, the Void Hunters. Cool, that's a cool name. Ultramarine successors and their livery is green. What am I erasing with? Oh, okay, so it's this right here. This is a pencil, what do they call it? Mechanical eraser. I'm pretty sure you can buy this at like any kind of office supply store. But yeah, it's kind of like a mechanical pencil. This is a mechanical pencil, and you can click it, and then the lead extends out further and further. But instead of lead, it's an eraser. See? It's just an eraser. So yeah, this is just a normal eraser, but I've cut the tip. I've cut the tip of the eraser to come to a point, and that allows me to kind of get into smaller areas of the model and erase. That's all that is. So can you tell me a bit more about your Void Hunters? That sounds exciting. So you had to create your own lore for them? That's cool. I don't know if you want to divulge the lore of the Void Hunters, but I always find that interesting. In fact, even when I was kind of in my hibernation period with the Warhammer hobby, I still paid attention to the lore because I've always found the lore to be really interesting for Warhammer. I would still kind of at least keep some tabs on what's going on. Okay, so I'll do a better job of erasing that stuff for now, but just gonna rub off. Just gonna make sure that all the eraser dust is off. And I think that's most of the eraser dust. Bacon, haven't done much today yet. I did work on the tall geese last night. Right. Yeah, I watched a bit of the progress. Looking really cool. I kind of wish that there was more options available at the moment. Sorry for the... Oh, shit. The mic scratching. That was just a box filled with parts that has somewhat toppled over. Just give me a second, guys. Let me just clean that up. Okay. Enelith, I see... Oh, Oh, Enelith, I thought it was something that you didn't know. Oh, the eraser? Okay. It's a pretty regular item then. Nothing too special. Alright, so... the next part that I'm doing is to fill in the design with white first. We're going to paint it white because painting yellow on blue, it's not going to work out. It's not strong enough. The yellow is too translucent, and it's not going to look good. So I was thinking, so for this one I actually used my my hand primer. I applied hand primer to the design first, and it worked out okay. But this time, at least for one model, let's just try applying some white paint. This is a P3 Moral White. Let's just try that instead and see how that turns out. Enolith, I don't mind telling you about them. Cool. Yeah, just yeah, tell me a little bit about these Void Hunters. That sounds cool. Yeah, I used to read up on all the lore of all the chapters. It was really interesting stuff. The Dark Angels and the... What was that one chapter? Legion of the Damned. Those guys are cool. Basically, they're all Ghost Rider. They look like Ghost Rider. Okay, let me just give me a second, guys, while I clean up a bit. Kind of got a bunch of stuff all over the place. Talgies. Yeah, I was tempted to pick that up last week, and I wasn't sure if you had it yourself. I remember you were talking about it, but I forgot if you bought it. But yeah, later that day you said that you got it yourself. So in a sense, I'm kind of glad I didn't buy it, just because I don't know, it's a little redundant if you bought it and I bought it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't know, it's more fun when everyone gets something different, so we can all kind of look at all the different things that everyone that's available. Bacon, wasn't there something like Blood Ravens or something like that? Space Wolves, yeah, there's Space Wolves. Blood Ravens? Maybe Enolith can shine a light on that. That could be a like a offshoot chapter to the Blood Angels, maybe. Maybe that was... I forget, in Dawn of War. Were they Blood Angels or were they called something else? Maybe they were called Blood Angels. Blood something. Blood Sport. Okay. So again, guys, I'm gonna have to concentrate a little bit while I do this. And I'm thinking I need to use a smaller brush. You can see that I'm constantly turning the model around to get a more comfortable angle. Okay. So that there you go. And it's not straight to the edges of the shape that I defined, but we can go in and kind of fix that up later. And again, sorry guys if I'm not checking chat. I need to kind of focus while I'm doing this. No, that sounds kind of pretentious. I need a complete concentration, please. Like a speedrunner. It's quiet time. Again, this is not very sharp. It's kind of not going straight to the edges. I'll fill that in later. Let me just fill in these ones at least, and then I can check the chat. And we're gonna do this again. Probably should use a smaller brush. Okay. And over here. And again, we're gonna kind of get the model, move the model around to get to a point where it's comfortable in our hands. Yeah, I was practicing this yesterday because I figure let me do a test run of this, and then I can actually stream the next day with a bit more confidence about what I'm doing. Okay, see, so it's looking a little patchy, as you can see, but we'll tighten that up with a few more layers. Oh, and another thing that I need to paint is his shoulder, because I just felt like the model needed some yellow. Uh, the actual pilot driver needed a bit more yellow, because this guy doesn't have a helmet, so he's missing that yellow, strong yellow element. So that's why I'm doing the shoulder here. I didn't come up with any lore reason for why. I guess I should. Okay, and again, a little sloppy, but we'll get that tighter. And sorry if this isn't even on screen while I do this. It's just that it's a little more comfortable for me to get the right angles that I need. Just momentarily denying you guys of a better look while I just focus on this. And it's good enough for now. We'll fix that up. Okay, sorry guys, let's check the chat. Enolith, to put it simply, they got founded to fight the Tyranids mainly. Their first chapter master was a member of the first tyrannic war veterans under Chaplain Cassius. So lots of Death Watch veterans and ties to the Ordo Xenos. Oh, cool. The Death Watch. Yeah, the Death Watch is a really interesting aspect of the lore too. I had a mobile game called Death Watch, and it was kind of like Space Hulk, but starring the Death Watch, and it wasn't limited to events taking place on a Space Hulk, but it was pretty neat. Enolith, the Blood Ravens are a chapter from the Dawn of War games. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Its origins is not said anywhere. It's rumored that they could be Thousand Sons? What? Thousand Sons? So they're traitors? Bacon beer can. Total concentration. Paint breathing. First form. I'm having some barley tea on my break. It's really good, guys. Barley iced tea. Got it at the Asian grocery store. It's a little sweet. It's a little too sweet for my liking. When I have when we make iced tea at home, we don't really add sugar at all. But it's nice barley tea. Yeah, I knew that the Blood Raven sounded familiar. Yeah, pretty neat that not Dawn of War, but that Space Marine is coming back. That's cool. I just thought of that as well, because both games are from Relic, I'm pretty sure. Total concentration. Okay. Yeah, we'll go in with a smaller brush and kind of tighten this up. Oh, this music is kind of not good for total concentration, breathing, painting first form. Let's get something else going on. Let's see, what do we like? Okay, let's just get this going for now. Alright. Enolith, they're loyalists, but in Dawn of War 2, the chapter master rebels and is killed by the player, so the chapter remains loyal, but there's a purge. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't play Dawn of War 2. I played the first one a fair amount, but quite recently, actually. I didn't play it when it first came out. I always wanted to, but I just never got around to it. So I played it somewhat recently, within the last few years, and it was pretty fun. But yeah, I haven't played 2. I know that there's some conflicting opinions regarding the quality of 2, and 3 seemed like even worse. Sounded like people didn't even like 3. Okay. Okay. So now I can go in with a smaller brush. Oh, forgot the shoulder pad there. Analyst, you've played it on and off for more than 10 years. Dawn of War 2? So you're more of a Dawn of War 2 fan? Or do you just like all Dawn of War? I actually think that Dawn of War, just the franchise in general, kind of helped to sort of open people up to Warhammer in general. Just because a lot of PC players, there was a good long while where the RTS genre kind of was stagnant, and StarCraft was the big dog, but we hadn't seen, it would still be many years before StarCraft 2 came out. And so Dawn of War kind of came out just at the right time where people were looking for something new, and it was similar enough to everything that had come before. It was similar enough to StarCraft, although, you know, that's heresy. It's more like the other way around, right? Yeah, StarCraft definitely owes a lot to 40K, to put it in the most generous terms. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people kind of were introduced to Warhammer thanks to Dawn of War, and then that kind of carried forward until now. So nowadays, it's like even though the primary way that Games Workshop sort of promotes the world of Warhammer 40K or Age of Sigmar, even though the primary way is through their games, their tabletop games, there's still like a lot of people that mostly engage through the hobby, through games, through video games, or just the Black Library books and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. All right, so we've gotten the first base coat done of white, and we're going to do at least 1 to 2 more, and then we can move on to the yellow. Analyth, the second is nice, but very much different, so not for everyone. Analyth, you've played the first. Dark Crusade and Soulstorm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've played both of those. Which is the one where, yeah, it's like this campaign and you have to pick a spot on the planet. And there's this cool kind of mini game where you have to take over territory and stuff. Was that on Dark Crusade or Soulstorm? I can't remember, but yeah, I played a bit of that. That was pretty cool. All right, so let's apply the yellow here. Sorry, not the yellow. Second coat of white. Okay. Just trying to get a slightly more even coat. Because if it's patchy now, it's definitely going to look patchy when I get to the yellow. But in some respects, it can't be helped. It's just, I'm not looking to do like several several layers of super thin white paint just to get a very smooth coat. You know, 2 to 3 should be enough. And to get these lines, I'm not actually moving my fingers like this, like to move the lines. I'm actually more kind of rotating the entire hand. So the fingers are actually locked into position, and you kind of just move the hand in like a motion, and then you can kind of you can pull straighter lines that way. more white. Total concentration. I think this is working out better than the primer. I was using hand primer to fill in the white part first. And I just couldn't get the right consistency with the primer. Analyst, both. Oh, they both have that campaign thing? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I played only the first one, though. The first, like, map. Oh, shit. So when something like this happens, just remain calm. Flood the area with water. And push the water off. There you go. Ooh. Just dry it off. An errant brushstroke. Okay. I have to get some more white. Okay. Okay. So, again, this still needs to be a little sharper before we move on to the yellow. But we can... Bacon. So yeah, I played a bit more Elden Ring today, but I still haven't really made much story progress. I'm literally still just exploring the first... just that first general area and looking for all the caves that I can find. Any caves or what are they called them, like eternal jails? Looking for more of those jails. I found another one, but I'll have to try that fight a few more times. Everjail, that's what it's called. Okay, looking a little better. The boss from the circular platforms. Yeah, I've found 2. I've defeated 1, but I found another one, and that was the last thing I did today. I was like, let's check this out. But I need to work on that fight a little more. Learn the fight. I mean, the only reason I was able to defeat the first one was because I used magic, though. The one basic magic starter spell that I have. I just shifted all my all or most of my my flasks into... Oh, you found 3, okay. Into Cerulean tears. And it's like, okay, let's just try not to get hit and just spam magic. It takes so long for the spell to come out, though. There's a stat where you can increase the speed. I think I'll buff that. That'll be helpful. Okay. Even when it's just white like this, it looks kind of cool, but the plan is to make it yellow. Making using magic feels like cheating sometimes. I mean, I guess that's always been the case for like practically all Souls games. But whatever, that's fine. I mean, when they were advertising the game, it definitely seemed like they were kind of selling people on magic more than ever, right? So much of the initial reveal was showing off how over the top magic was. And I was like, cool, maybe I'll just try magic this time. I normally don't use magic all that much in my playthroughs, but I mean, they kind of sold me on that. Maybe I should try it. Okay, looking a little better. Okay. I think we can go in with the yellow now. Oh, wait. That was just the one. We've got to do the second layer on this one, too. Bacon, I can't really tell from here, but did you draw the outlines for the yellow? Freehand? No, I drew them first. I used a mechanical pencil, this one here. And yeah, I drew it out. You can kind of, you might not be able to see it all too well, but you can kind of faintly see a more reflective line. That's the graphite, which I go back and erase. Yeah, might not be able to see it all too well. I'm trying to see here, but there's faintly some lines that I haven't fully erased. So I drew that in first, and then I'm kind of just coloring in the lines. But actually, before I did all that, I took a photo of the model and put it into Photoshop and drew a bunch of designs uh, on computer first to see what I liked, because I wasn't actually sure what kind of design I should even go for. And I just kind of messed around real quickly on Photoshop and was like, okay, this one sort of looks good, so let's go with that. Okay, I need a bit more paint. It's too watery now. But yeah, to be honest, I was a little nervous about starting to paint these designs, just because, as I said before, if I screw this up, it's kind of like I'm potentially screwing up everything else that I had done before, right? On the model. So that's why I wanted to take the extra step to do it on computer first, to see if I liked what I was even doing, because yeah, it's kind of hard to change your mind once you start painting. I mean, of course, you can always kind of paint over things and stuff like that, but you know, better to just do it digitally, where you can kind of make as many mistakes as you want and then fix it up and do it right the one time on the actual model. That being said, I actually ended up changing slightly the design on my example here that I worked on last night. I have the pencil art, and I filled it in and painted it, and then I kind of looked at it more and thought that the gap between the thick yellow bar and the thinner yellow bar should be smaller, and the difference between the two bars should be more pronounced. They were more closer together in terms of the thickness. So yeah, I did go back and change it and kind of painted away some of the yellow in that case. Okay, well, gotta do on this side. One thing that I've been meaning to kind of experiment with is burnishing. It's a somewhat new technique, at least new to me, that I hadn't really known about in my time before my long break from the hobby. But I was watching I was looking at a blog from a former Golden Demon winner, and Golden Demon, for those that don't know, is a it's like a big painting tournament. Like, you know, it's the equivalent of the Gundam Gundam Building World Championship. It's kind of like that for miniature painting, or Warhammer at least. And yeah, so this guy, the blog is called like Sprocket's World or something like that. But he was talking about this idea of burnishing your models, and he related it to, like, if you have minor bumps and imperfections in your model, maybe when you're painting you can see like the depth of the, you can actually see the brush strokes as you're painting, or maybe there's like this weird kind of like lump of dust or something that got trapped in between the layers of your painting. You can go in with a burnishing tool. I think he even said you could use paper, and kind of you're effectively sanding the surface of the paint to kind of flatten out the result. And I thought that was really interesting because lately I've been having problems with my brush strokes. Like, I feel like I can always see my brush strokes, and I want it to be like invisible, right? The brush strokes. So yeah, that's something I'd like to try out more. I have been slightly experimenting with that. For example, this model here, I had primed it. And I do hand priming, right? And usually my hand priming is pretty decent, but this time around the result was kind of a little too textured for my liking. Again, I could see my brushstrokes. So I actually went in with some sandpaper. I think it was 800 grit. And after the initial primer layer had dried, I gave it about like 5 hours, maybe even more as recommended. I would go in and actually sand it with 800, I think I had. And it kind of smoothed it out. And then I was able to apply this blue layer, and now it looks pretty decent, I think. So let's see, is that all the white now? But ideally you shouldn't really have to even get to that point where you're burnishing your model. I feel like ideally the paint surface should be kind of flat, and you should just sufficiently thin out your paints and stuff. But yeah, sometimes even though I do thin out my paints, I feel like the result is still kind of somewhat thick, or I can see the brush strokes. And sometimes that's because I use a smaller brush than necessary or recommended. Should definitely use a larger brush for some surfaces. Okay. Well, I think that might be it for that first layer. Let's check this guy. Check his shoulder pad here. Can move on to the yellow, but I'm thinking before we move on to the yellow, it might be a good idea to do an outline, like a black outline. In the tattoo world, you don't often see tattoos without black outlines, because it just helps kind of define the shape and colors of the tattoo, and kind of, it sounds weird, but it kind of traps the color in. And yeah, there's definitely a difference when you don't do a black outline and when you do. And so long as it's thin, I think it'll look good. But I like to do it now before I move on to the yellow, because because even if my lining is kind of thick, I can kind of paint over it with the yellow just a little bit. So yeah, this example here has the black outline, but it's a little hard to tell because it's so thin. But this has the black outline, and this actually is an example of something without the black outline. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess I don't have to do it, but I don't know. Let's just try. Or how about we do one model with the outline and one not? So yeah, like one of these, I'll do one without and then one with one. So you can kind of see the difference. See if it makes a big difference. But yeah. before we move on, let's take a little break, and when I get back, we'll do that. All right, guys. So sit tight.